Welcome back to Going Walkabout. We've been living in Mexico quite a lot over the past 3 years. Barrias on the Baja Peninsula, Mexico City, San Miguel de Allende, and we're currently in Mérida in the Yucatan. Living in Mexico has illuminated some of the myths many of us are told about America. In this video, we'll explore 10 myths I no longer believe about America after living in Mexico. If you're new to the channel, I'm Susan Steele, and with my husband of almost 40 years, Carl Steele, we sold everything 3 years ago and have been traveling ever since. Of the last 3 years of travel, we've spent the majority of time in Mexico. I have a couple of disclaimers before we get started. We're in Mérida, Mexico, and our house is very dark, so I have to film out here, which means I'm going to get the barrio sounds all around, people working, dogs barking, so please excuse that noise. Secondly, these are my opinions, so please understand that, again, these are just my opinions, and I would love for you to display your opinions in the comments below. So let's get started at number one. At number one, I have America is no longer the land of milk and honey. I can remember back to the 80s when it seemed like the world was your oyster and there was so much potential. I grew up in California and I worked at Universal Studios. I got a job as a manager at a sporting goods store that was really busy in West LA. And it seemed like I had a bright future. I was excited about it. You know, now many other countries have caught up with America and with our vibrant economy, especially Mexico. And in fact, Mexico City currently has or hosts 571 startups and has over $4.2 billion that is attracted from venture capitalists. Along with that, Guadalajara is now known as the Silicon Valley of Mexico. And the reason is because Mexico offers free higher education. So you can go to the universities and learn software engineering. And because of that, I think that they're literally just upgrading themselves in leaps and bounds. Technology has become a huge thing for this country. I always felt like the land of milk and honey described a place where you could get ahead between the high fees for education and limited job opportunities in America. It does not feel like the leader in that place anymore. So that seems like a myth to me. The second myth that I've noticed is one that's kind of detailed, and that's how Americans view each other. It's very much that your job is your life and your identity. I can remember going to countless parties, and the first thing people would ask me is, what do you do for a living? And I get that they're trying to put you in some kind of a box or trying to understand maybe what your personality is like through that question, but it's actually puts you on the kind of the defensive. Certainly as you retire, it becomes very uncomfortable because, let's face it, your identity is no longer your job in any way, and that becomes very uncomfortable for a lot of retired people. Here in Mexico, after being here for easily over a year and a half, living here, I've never experienced somebody asking me what I do for a living. The first question a lot of Mexican people will ask you is, what do you like? What kind of music do you like? What kind of books do you like to read? What are your hobbies? To this day, I have yet to have anybody ever ask me what I do for a living. And I think that's really important. It quickly brings us back to who we really are and the essence of us. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So at number 3, we have personal responsibility is your problem. One of the myths is that in America you're taken care of, and it is kind of a myth. However, when you're in many foreign countries, Mexico included, you're responsible for yourself. If you're walking down the sidewalk and you fall in a hole, there's no one to sue. You simply have fallen in a hole because you weren't paying attention. And so it really is a different feeling. You're treated like an adult. If you want to jaywalk, you go ahead, but you might get hit by a car. Again, there's no one to sue. I guess what really brought this to light for me when I was living in America, and I can remember somebody suing McDonald's because the coffee was too hot, and they were driving and they spilled coffee in their lap and they burnt themselves. I'm pretty sure a lawsuit such as that would never fly in Mexico. And that's because they treat everybody like adults. There isn't a big brother system that is watching everyone and telling them how they need to act. And they don't seem to be affected in a negative way by that. Quite frankly, it seems much more positive, and the whole society seems much less litigious, whereas I believe America has gotten much more litigious over the years. At number 4, we have the myth that the U.S. healthcare is the best in the world. And while it is very good, and my husband was able to have a hip operation last year and it went outstandingly well, but that's because we were able to put it on Medicare, and that took care of literally 90% of the cost, which was fantastic. However, we had paid into Medicare, so we fully deserved that benefit. With that said, the healthcare here in Mexico is of a very high standard, and it's very affordable by everyone. I have a lot more information on this on a video that I did. It's called Why Americans Are Searching for a Better Life in Mexico, and it's point number 10. So if you want more information on the healthcare and the dental care in Mexico, watch that. But suffice to say that the healthcare here is of incredibly high standard, and it's very affordable for everyone, and that's for minor things as well as larger things. Myth number 5 is the USA is the safest place to live, and that's simply not the case anymore. I believe a lot of it is due to our gun control laws, and when literally anybody can buy a gun and then use it at any time, it does not feel safe to many people who do not believe that that's the resolution to a problem. Mexico's gun control is done by the simple fact that they only have 2 places in the whole country that you can buy a firearm, and those are on military bases. The military is the only one that can sell guns in Mexico, and you have to pass a very strict test, a criteria, so that you can get a firearm of any kind. What's interesting is I believe about 10 years ago, they actually confiscated more firearms than they sold in the country. The other thing that's interesting to note is the firearms that are confiscated are usually from the drug cartels, and the majority of those are from America. So that's not really good. I did a video on safety in Mexico that you may want to watch. I'll put it here. And that really goes into a deep dive on the cartels and what's safe. But at the end of the day, what I was able to discern is that Mexico, the city of Mexico and many Mexican cities like where we are right now in Merida are quite a lot safer than most cities in the United States. At number 6, we have the myth that Americans are the most patriotic people. And while I used to love 4th of July when I was a kid, I just have memories of watermelon seeds and fireworks, and it was lovely. I've certainly seen a decline in the enthusiasm of a lot of Americans for this particular celebration. Whereas here in Mexico, we were here for their Independence Day, and Mexican Independence Day is September 16th. And I can tell you that a month before, the whole city, and this is Mexico City, was done up in red and green and white flags. They had kiosks everywhere where you could buy lovely outfits for the kids. And then on the actual day, September 16th, thousands of people go to the Zocalo, which is the main plaza, and they have what they call the scream, El Grita and El Grito. And the El Grito is to signify the battle cry for the Mexican independence. It's a huge thing for them. They became independent from Spain, and that was monumental for them as a people. So the country feels very unified, where sadly right now, America does not feel unified at all. It feels quite divided. So at number 7, we have America's the best country for retirement, and quite frankly, the reason we sold everything and started traveling 3 years ago was to find a place that we could retire and that would be affordable for us. What we've seen in the United States is maybe you buy your home and you've paid for that, but then the property taxes go up and the state income tax goes up and the costs like insurance and utilities go up to the point that you can no longer live on a fixed income. So that is one of the reasons that we've been living in Mexico and why many people are moving to Mexico, because they can find a home that's affordable and then they can contain their costs in owning that home so that they can figure out what they need to budget for the next year or further into the future. I think the other thing that's making Mexico a very attractive place for retirees is that it's in the same time zones as the United States. So if you have kids in Florida, you're in the same time zone. Same again, Central Time, same again with Mountain Time. And if you're in Baja, you're pretty much in California time. So it mimics the United States. So as far as being able to communicate with family and so forth, you're still able to do that pretty easily. I guess the other thing I notice is people say America is the only place that has all the mod coms, air conditioning, modern appliances. And while that was absolutely true in Mexico, and I'm going back to the 1990s because we owned a home in Mexico and it was very difficult getting furniture and appliances, that is not the case any longer. Mexico has amazing architects and amazing homes, and I'm going to put some up for you to see while I'm talking here. And you're going to notice that they not only build really nice places, but they're very sensitive to the environment. Most of the places here in Mexico are hot or get a lot of rain, and so the architects are very sensitive to that, and they're able to encompass the natural landscape and the natural climate so that they have a home that is really comfortable and utilizes, in many cases, less electricity for, let's say, air conditioning. So it actually has flipped quite a lot from the 1990s, and now I would say that Mexico, in some cases, might even be surpassing the United States when it comes to some of the mod coms. Number 9 I have, it's impossible to leave the United States because everything is so convenient. And while that used to be true, it is not true any longer. In any larger city in Mexico, and Cabo San Lucas would not be considered a large city, however, they still have a Walmart, they still have a Costco, and pretty much it's the same. We got to Merida, we have not been to the Costco or the Walmart. I don't think we will go there, but they certainly have those places now in most Mexican cities, large and small. The only place where you may not find that type of convenience is in a very small place, and that's one we used to live in called Los Barrias, which is in the Sea of Cortez. And it is an incredibly small community. So we would have to drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to Cabo if we wanted to get certain groceries and so forth. But aside from that, most towns and cities have excellent grocery stores, and many of them have the now larger big box shops as well. As an add-on to the conveniences, their internet is incredibly good here, and so every home that we've rented has a modern TV, PC TV, and we're able to get Netflix, Amazon, YouTube, you name it. So they're fully conversant in that particular level of convenience as well. And again, that's a big thing because that's a big part of all of our lives right now, is that communication through the internet. At number 10, we have the American dream can only happen in America. And that I don't believe is the case anymore. When I used to think of the American dream, I would think of a comfortable house with a white picket fence, the fact that I could have a stable job, that I had a stress-free life because I felt like the government had my back, a lifestyle that I could afford. This dream, I feel, is now somewhat tarnished. Currently, there are literally hundreds of thousands of Americans that feel stressed trying to figure out, day-to-day life and how they're going to afford it. What we've noticed in Mexico or observed is that you can have the underpinnings of the American dream. You can have a decent home that's affordable. You can have food to eat, and you can have the ability to go out at least 2 or 3 times a week and not break the bank. Most large costs are more affordable, and by that I mean whether it's a home or a car, those are all much more in a realm of being able to pay for them. If you're retired, you can live a life less stressful here because you're containing your costs. You know what the taxes are going to be. You know the electricity is fairly low. So a lot of things that have gone way out of control in the United States are actually contained here, which I think is part of you know, living a dream is not being stressed out all the time, worrying about what things are going to go up and what you have to pay for. One of the key things that we found in living in Mexico as long as we have is that it's the people. And these people are the kindest people in the world. They're incredibly polite to everyone, each other. I mean, it's a very, very genteel world. And I had one of the people that views my channel write in, who is Mexican, and he said, the reason for the politeness is because they're taught at a very young age, and this is at home as well as at school. So they really kind of beat it into them that you are gracious to everyone, you say thank you to everyone, you greet everyone. In fact, if someone says buenos dias to you and you don't respond, they literally take that as a big negative. So it's very much a part of this society, and that is something that I believe is kind of missing now from the American dream, is the gentility that we had towards each other in America that I'm not seeing so much anymore. I hope you found these 10 myths interesting. If I've missed any, please let me know. Please leave your comments below and let me know what you think of all of this. Do you think America's changed? Do you think the myths that we grew up with are no longer true anymore? Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And as always, I can tell you that a thumbs up, despite what people may say, is huge for the channel and really helps. Or better yet, as I always say, subscribe. I would really appreciate that. We do a video every week. Thanks again for watching, and cheers for now.